Most people believe that if they just keep saving, one day they'll finally feel secure. But what if I told you that saving alone is exactly why so many people stay broke year after year? It sounds harsh, but it's the truth nobody shares in church or in finance seminars. The Bible doesn't celebrate burying what you've been given. It calls you to multiply it. Imagine working hard for decades, faithfully tucking money away, only to wake up one day and realize inflation has stolen half your purchasing power. That's not just bad luck, it's a lack of strategy. The good news is you don't have to keep repeating this cycle. Inside this video, you're going to uncover the biblical truth about how to make money grow without guilt, shame, or fear. You'll learn why investing isn't gambling, it's stewardship. And you'll see how ordinary believers, just like you, are building wealth that funds their purpose and leaves a legacy that honors God. If you ever felt like you were made for more than just surviving, you're exactly where you need to be. Let's break the myths, challenge the old beliefs, and step into a new season of multiplying what God has placed in your hands. Why saving alone keeps you poor, the hidden cost of inaction. Most people grew up hearing that if they just saved enough, one day they'd be rich. But here's the thing. Hoarding money without purpose or growth is like burying your talent in the ground. In Matthew 25, Jesus tells the story of the servant who hid his master's money instead of multiplying it. He didn't lose it, but he gained nothing, and was called wicked and lazy. This isn't just a parable about fear, it's a warning that inaction carries a hidden cost. Think about inflation for a second. Every year, your money quietly loses buying power. That $1,000 you tuck away under your mattress doesn't stay the same. It shrinks. In 5 years, it might only buy what $800 does today. If you've ever wondered why your grocery bill keeps growing or why gas feels more expensive, that's inflation eating away at your savings like termites in the foundation. Saving without investing is standing still on a moving walkway that's dragging you backward. In the business world, time is money. Every month you delay putting your money to work, you miss out on compounding returns. Imagine you invested $500 a month at a 10% annual return. In 20 years, that could grow to over $300,000. But if you waited just 5 years to start, you'd have nearly $100,000 less. That's the hidden cost no one tells you about. The cost of doing nothing while others let their money multiply. Some believers think it's more holy to avoid investments and just save. But Proverbs 21:20 says, "The wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down." Notice it doesn't say the wise just keep their jars full forever. They store strategically, ready to grow, and steward what God provides. When you only save, you aren't preparing for tomorrow's harvest. You're just hoping today's manna never runs out. A practical example? Look at your savings account interest rate. Most banks offer around 0.01%. That's 1 cent a year on every $100. Meanwhile, inflation might be 3 and 6% or more. This means your money is guaranteed to lose value over time if you don't take action. It's like watching your hard-earned dollars slowly fade while others let theirs grow through simple, steady investments. Money isn't evil. It's a tool God expects you to manage wisely. So if you've been stuck believing that saving alone will secure your future, it's time to rethink. God didn't create you to live in fear of using resources. He called you to multiply, to steward, and to build something lasting. And once you start seeing the real cost of inaction, you'll be ready to discover the biblical mandate to multiply, something that goes deeper than just a financial strategy. The biblical mandate to multiply. What the parable of the talents really teaches about money. Many believers read the parable of the talents and think it's just a nice story about faithfulness. But if you look closely, it's also a direct instruction about money and business. In Matthew 25, the master didn't tell the servants to play it safe or just protect the money. He expected them to multiply it. The servant who buried his portion wasn't praised for avoiding risk. He was condemned for wasting opportunity. This parable is God's clear message. Making money grow isn't greed, it's stewardship. When you receive resources, whether it's money, skills, or time, you have a divine assignment to invest them wisely. In business, this means you don't just hold cash in fear of losing it. You look for places where your money can work for you. This is the same mindset that built empires in Scripture, like Joseph managing Egypt's grain. He didn't just save, he planned, invested, and expanded. Multiplication has always been part of God's design. A lot of people confuse prudence with paralysis. They think being cautious means never taking action. But Proverbs 13:11 says, "Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow." Notice that it doesn't say whoever hides it. Growth requires movement. Even small steps, like setting up a basic investment account, can align you with biblical wisdom. Your money was never meant to sit idle. Imagine you inherited $10,000 and decided to do nothing out of fear. A decade later, inflation would have eaten away a third of it. But if you invested it in a simple S&P 500 index fund with a historical average of 8–10% return, it could have nearly doubled. That's not some Wall Street secret. It's a modern example of the ancient principle of multiplying what you're given. God honors diligence and wisdom, not passivity. Think about how the master responded to the two servants who invested. He didn't say, "Good job avoiding all risk." He said, "Well done, good and faithful servant." Their reward was not just affirmation, but more responsibility, more territory to influence. In God's kingdom, faithful multiplication leads to greater purpose. Money is just one of the tools He uses to teach us stewardship. If you've ever felt guilty about wanting to grow your finances, it's time to release that shame. There is nothing righteous about shrinking back. You were created to build, to plant, and to reap. And once you embrace this truth, you'll be prepared to understand how inflation is the silent thief, and why investing is a form of protecting your calling. How inflation steals your future, and why investing is biblical stewardship. Most people underestimate how sneaky inflation really is. It doesn't show up with alarms blaring. It quietly eats away at your money while you're busy living life. Ecclesiastes 11:2 advises, invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land. This isn't just about diversification. It's a recognition that the world changes, prices rise, and wealth must be actively protected. Inflation is one of those silent disasters the wise prepare for. Let's put this into perspective. Imagine you saved $50,000 10 years ago and left it sitting in a regular savings account. With average inflation around 3% per year, your money lost nearly a third of its purchasing power. That means the same groceries, rent, or supplies cost you more, and your savings buy less. In business, this is the equivalent of letting your product inventory rot on the shelves while your competitors keep innovating. Money standing still is money eroding. The Bible never glorifies idleness. Proverbs 10:4 says, "Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth." Investing is diligence in action. It's looking at your resources and asking, how can I multiply this responsibly? Some people think investing is too risky, but what they don't realize is that doing nothing is its own risk. When you invest in well-diversified assets, you're not gambling, you're guarding against the certainty of inflation. Consider this simple example. If you invest in a broad market ETF with an 8% annual return and inflation runs 3%, your real return is about 5%. That's your money growing ahead of rising costs. But if you just save at 0.01% interest, you're falling behind every single year. Over decades, the gap becomes enormous. This is why smart investors, people who respect biblical principles, see investing as a way to honor God by safeguarding what He has entrusted to them. You might be wondering, isn't it safer to just keep my cash? In reality, that's like hiding your harvest underground and expecting it to feed your family in 10 years. God didn't design resources to stay stagnant. Whether it was seeds, talents, or gold, the expectation was always to grow and steward them. Money is no different. It requires intention, courage, and faith that multiplying it serves a greater purpose. Once you begin to see inflation for what it is, a slow, relentless thief, you can approach investing with confidence, not fear. It's not about getting rich quick or chasing hype. It's about aligning with God's wisdom, building a legacy, and protecting your future. And as you learn how to invest wisely, you'll discover what kinds of assets can be both profitable and honoring to your faith. What to invest in first: safe, scalable, and God-honoring assets. When you're new to investing, it feels like there are 1,000 options screaming for your attention. But not all investments are created equal. Some are built on speculation and hype, while others rest on principles of steady growth. Proverbs 24:27 advises, "Put your outdoor work in order and get your fields ready. After that, build your house." In modern terms, this means laying a solid financial foundation before chasing shiny opportunities. The right first investments should be safe, scalable, and aligned with your values. Many people think picking individual stocks is the smartest way to make money fast. But let's be real, most beginners don't have the time or expertise to research companies deeply enough to avoid big mistakes. That's why index funds and ETFs tracking broad markets like the S&P 500 are such powerful starting points. They automatically spread your investment across hundreds of businesses, reducing risk while still giving you room to grow. Even Warren Buffett says most people are better off owning index funds than trying to beat the market. If you're wondering whether this approach honors God, consider this. Stewardship isn't about chasing the biggest returns. It's about managing resources wisely, providing for your family, and having enough to bless others. 1 Timothy 5:8 says, "Anyone who does not provide for their relatives has denied the faith." Building a stable foundation through diversified investments equips you to fulfill this calling without fear of financial disaster. Practical example: start by looking at ETFs like VU, SPY, or SPLG. These funds hold pieces of America's largest companies and have low expense ratios, meaning more of your money works for you. You don't have to watch the market every day or become an expert trader. Just set up an automatic monthly investment and let time do the heavy lifting. This strategy balances growth and stability, which is especially important if you have a family or ministry to support. Some believers feel uneasy about investing in secular companies. If that's you, consider biblically responsible investing, BRI funds, that screen out industries conflicting with your values. Funds like Bibble and Cath allow you to invest in businesses aligned with Christian ethics while still pursuing healthy returns. This way, you can make money and honor your convictions without compromise. Once you've built a strong foundation with simple, diversified investments, you can gradually explore other asset classes, like real estate, dividend stocks, or even starting a business. But don't skip the first step. Creating a safe, scalable base is what gives you the freedom to take bigger steps later. And when you're ready to think about timing and discipline, you'll see that the when and how much matters just as much as the what. When and how much to invest. The principles of timing and discipline. One of the biggest mistakes people make in business and money is waiting for the perfect time. The truth? There's no flawless moment when all your fears disappear. Ecclesiastes 11:4 warns, "Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap." In other words, if you keep waiting for ideal conditions, you'll never move. Investing is about discipline, consistent action over time, not perfect timing. Some folks think they need thousands of dollars to get started, but that's simply not true. Many brokers today let you begin with as little as $1. The important thing is building the habit of investing regularly. Whether it's $10, $100, or $1,000 a month, those seeds compound over time. Imagine you invested just $100 a month in a simple index fund with a 10% average return. In 30 years, you'd have over $200,000 without ever making a big move. Timing matters less than consistency. Markets will rise and fall, but the discipline of investing every month smooths out the highs and lows. This is what's called dollar cost averaging. You're buying when prices are high, low, and everywhere in between. Over the long term, this strategy can outperform trying to time the market perfectly. Remember, no one can predict the future, not even the most seasoned experts. If you're still unsure how much to invest, here's a practical framework. First, eliminate high-interest debt like credit cards over 12%. That's a guaranteed return. Second, build an emergency fund covering 3 and 6 months of expenses. Third, invest whatever money you don't need for the next 5 years. This protects you from having to sell investments in a panic when life throws curveballs. Biblical wisdom values preparation and prudence. Proverbs 21:5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty." Investing isn't about rushing in. It's about planning, committing, and trusting the process. Money grows when you give it time and consistency. And the earlier you start, the more you can lean on compound growth rather than short-term luck. When you understand that discipline is more powerful than timing, fear loses its grip. You'll stop obsessing over headlines and start focusing on habits. And once you're confident in when and how much to invest, you'll be ready to open your first account without the weight of confusion holding you back. How to start practically. Opening your first investment account without fear. Many people never start investing because the process feels overwhelming, but opening your first account is simpler than most realize. Think of it like opening a checking account, just with a purpose to grow, not just store. Proverbs 16:3 says, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans." When you approach investing as stewardship, not gambling, it becomes an act of faith and wisdom. First, choose a reputable brokerage. In the US, companies like Vanguard, Fidelity, and Charles Schwab are trusted names. If you're outside the US, consider Interactive Brokers. They all have robust online platforms with tutorials to guide you step by step. Start by creating an account and linking your bank. This usually takes about 10 minutes. You'll need your basic info, name, address, social security number. Nothing too intimidating. Next, decide whether to open a taxable brokerage account or a retirement account like a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA grows tax-free but has contribution limits and withdrawal restrictions before age 59 and a half. A taxable account offers flexibility. You can invest as much as you want and withdraw anytime. If you're unsure, start with a taxable account to build experience. Later, you can layer in retirement contributions as your confidence grows. Once your account is open, set up automatic deposits. Even a small recurring contribution, say $50 a month, builds discipline. This is how many people go from being intimidated by investing to feeling empowered. You don't need to watch the market daily or become an expert overnight. Think of it like planting a tree. The most important step is putting the first seed in the ground. If you want an example of what to buy, consider starting with an S&P 500 ETF like VUU or SPLG. They hold shares of hundreds of top companies and have low expense ratios. Simply search the ticker symbol, click Buy, and set your order as a market order for simplicity. Within seconds, you'll officially be an investor. No fancy credentials required. Money starts working only when you give it an assignment. Over time, you can expand your strategy. Maybe you'll explore dividend-paying stocks, biblically responsible investing funds, or even real estate investment trusts, REITs. But it all begins with that first step of opening your account and making a commitment. And once you've done this, you'll be ready to face the next challenge. How to handle fear and uncertainty without letting it sabotage your progress. How to handle fear and uncertainty. Faith, patience, and long-term mindset. No matter how much you learn about money and business, fear will show up. It's part of being human. The Bible doesn't tell us to ignore fear, it tells us to respond with faith. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and self-discipline." Investing requires self-discipline because the markets will test your patience. Prices go up and down, and headlines scream disaster. But remember, volatility is normal, panic is optional. One of the biggest traps is checking your account every day. Seeing red numbers can trigger anxiety that leads to bad decisions. Instead, set a schedule to review your investments once a quarter. This keeps your focus on long-term growth, not daily noise. Think of it like tending a garden. You don't dig up the seeds every morning to see if they sprouted. You water them, trust the process, and let time do its work. If you ever feel tempted to sell everything when the market dips, pause and remember this: you haven't lost anything until you sell. History proves that markets recover. The 2008 financial crisis, the dot-com bubble, even the COVID crash, every single one eventually gave way to growth. Proverbs 13:11 reminds us, "Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow." Consistency beats reactionary moves every time. Practical example: imagine you invested $10,000 before a crash. If you held through the downturn within a few years, you'd often not only recover but come out ahead. But if you panicked and sold, you'd lock in your losses permanently. The secret to long-term success isn't predicting the future. It's refusing to quit when everyone else does. That's where faith meets financial wisdom. Money is a tool, not your master. When fear rises, pray for perspective. Ask yourself, am I making this decision from faith or from fear? Write down your investment plan in advance so when emotions run high, you have a roadmap to follow. This keeps you grounded in purpose, not panic. Once you learn to handle uncertainty with patience and faith, you'll discover a powerful peace that most investors never experience. And when you're anchored in that mindset, you'll be equipped to see why most people fail and what you can do to build wealth that truly honors God. Why most people fail and how you can build wealth that honors God. It's easy to assume that people fail with money because they don't earn enough. But in truth, the problem is rarely income. It's mindset. Hosea 4:6 says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." Many never learn the principles of investing, discipline, and stewardship. They follow emotion instead of wisdom. They chase trends instead of timeless truths. And slowly their potential slips through their fingers, replaced by regret. Most people approach investing with unrealistic expectations. They want to get rich overnight or never see their portfolio drop a penny. But wealth built God's way grows little by little. Proverbs 13:11 says, "Whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow." When you embrace this slow, steady approach, you avoid the pitfalls of gambling your future on hype and speculation. You learn to trust the process and to trust God's provision. Another reason people fail is isolation. They don't seek counsel or learn from those who've walked the road ahead. Proverbs 15:22 teaches plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. Whether it's a mentor, a faith-based financial planner, or simply wise friends, surround yourself with people who share your values and can keep you accountable. Business and money were never meant to be navigated alone. Consider this example. Two people each invest $5,000 in the same index fund. One panics during a market downturn and sells everything. The other stays invested, keeps adding monthly, and prays for wisdom. 10 years later, the disciplined investor has more than doubled their money, while the other locked in losses. What made the difference wasn't luck. It was mindset and commitment. Building wealth that honors God doesn't mean accumulating money for its own sake. It means using resources to bless others, fund your purpose, and provide stability for your family. It means seeing money as a servant, not a master. When you approach business and finance this way, you step into a bigger story, one where profit and purpose walk hand in hand. If you've ever wondered why so many people struggle financially despite good intentions, now you know. It's not a lack of opportunity, it's a lack of preparation and perspective. But the good news is, you can choose differently. And as you apply these principles, you'll be ready to craft a legacy that outlasts any market trend. You've just learned that saving alone isn't a plan, it's a trap. You've seen how inflation, fear, and passivity quietly erode everything you've worked for. But you've also discovered that the Bible calls you to so much more. You were created to multiply, to steward, and to build something that lasts beyond your lifetime. Imagine what your life could look like a year from now if you started applying even one of these principles. What doors could open if you refused to let fear run your decisions? What legacy could you create if you embraced investing not as greed, but as faith in action? I want you to think about this. Are you going to keep doing what you've always done, hoping things will somehow change? Or are you ready to trust God's wisdom? Take that first step and let your money serve the purpose it was given for. Write in the comments, "My business and my money are under God's direction." And watch how this powerful declaration begins to shift the course of your business and your finances from this day forward. If this message has stirred something in your heart, consider supporting our ministry through the link in the description. It helps us continue sharing biblical insights that transform lives. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a teaching that could impact your finances and your faith.